government is starting to do layoffs. So I had already seen this coming because it's a lot of people that was trying to figure out what happened to the Department of Government Efficiency. How come it's not being promoted? And the reason that it hadn't been promoted is not that they're not doing their job and finding fraud, waste, and abuse, and also being able to make sure that they skim down the government workforce. But the reason that Department of Government Efficiency has been a little bit more quiet is because a lot of things had to be hung up in court. So I'm going to share this video with you guys first. All right. Because I want y'all, I know federal workers thought that it was over and that they would be able to do what they wanted to do and all of this stuff. But that's not true. And this is what's happening out here in these streets. Again, make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, and then we're gonna do a Patreon live stream on Saturday morning. We got Stock Club Saturday morning because I don't have to do a replacement show.
The Supreme Court has cleared the way for the Trump administration to move forward with its mass layoffs of federal workers. The justices today lifted a lower court order that had blocked layoffs at dozens of agencies. The Trump administration has been working to reorganize and downsize the federal government under the White House Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE. CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson joins us now. Jessica, always very good to see you. Remind us a little bit about the facts of this case and how it ended up before the Supreme Court here.
So it ended up before the Supreme Court, as we're talking about increasingly frequently, is that there was an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court. So what happened? As you said, President Trump issued an executive order saying, essentially, we're going to drastically reduce the number of federal workers. And then there was another memo that was issued about exactly how to do that. Labor groups and others sued and said, Mr. President, you don't have the power. You actually have to work with Congress if you want to dramatically reorganize the executive branch this way. And there was an initial win by those challenging the president's executive order in the trial court at the district court. The district court judge said, at least for now, to the challengers, you're right, Mr. President, you cannot implement these plans. Let's put these plans on hold. The Trump administration then appealed up to the Ninth Circuit, that's the Intermediate Court of Appeals, and said, let us move forward. The Ninth Circuit, in a divided decision, said no. The Trump administration, in an emergency appeal, then went up to the Supreme Court. That's the ruling that we're talking about today. And the Supreme Court essentially lifted the lower court's pause.
So let's stop there for a second and let's have a conversation. All right. Let's stop there and have a conversation. Remember when Jasmine Crockett and several other Democrats was sitting here having a conversation with y'all and they were saying, see, we're winning in court in the Trump administration. They can't lay off all of these people and all of this stuff, right? And because I'm going to hit a couple different points for y'all and why it's important for y'all to participate in the election process, and also why it's important for y'all to understand what's going on outside of what these Democrats and or politicians are saying to you. So Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Bernie Sanders, all of these people were saying that they were beating Trump in court. And it was a white lie because, yes, technically they were, but at the same time they weren't. All they did was prolong the inevitable because eventually the Trump administration, like they do with every issue, whether it's birthright citizenship or federal layoffs, are saying, well, we're going to appeal to the Supreme Court. And then it works out in their favor because they basically back Trump. Now, it's a couple different things that come along with that. A, the federal government is bloated. We'll get to that in a second. But B, what is it? Why is this? Why am I mentioning the Supreme Court? And why is this important? First, you guys have been getting a lot of misinformation from Democrats. That's the first thing. But the second thing is this. The Supreme Court justices are chosen by who? It is nominated by presidents. So Ketanji Jackson, for example, who is a super liberal Supreme Court justice, was selected by who? The Biden administration. When people say that their vote don't matter or that they don't want to participate in an election process, they're basically giving other people the ability to choose for them who ultimately is going to craft the laws, enforce the laws, and determine the difference between right and wrong. Because the president is not only the person that advocates for legislation or works with Congress on the budget or issues executive orders or determines what's going to happen between Israel and Iran, or if we're going to go to war as the commander in chief, or the implementation of ICE. The president doesn't just do that, right? It's not only important for you to participate in local politics, even though local politics affect you the most, but the president is also the person that nominates the Supreme Court justices that we eventually appeal up to once it goes past these circuit court judges. And they are the ones that make the final determination of whether or not you can do what you want to do with your body, or whether we're going to have it go back to the states as far as you voting on whether or not people can eliminate babies as a form of contraception. They're the ones that's going to determine birthright citizenship. They're also the people that's going to determine whether or not you are going to have a job in the federal government. Now, do you see why it's important for your vote to count? Because just because you don't directly feel it, you don't see them issuing you money directly, but what they are doing is they're crafting the culture around you that ultimately determines your fate. And if you got to pivot over to this way, or if you're going to be safe for the rest of your life, or whether or not you're going to get forgiven for student loans, or if you're going to get laid off and you thought that you were safe because you went into diversity, equity, and inclusion as a study in college, and then that's where you thought that you was going to work for the rest of your life, and you thought that you was going to be able to get your student loans forgiven at $300,000 because you was going to work there and get on a subsidized repayment plan for 10 years, but then say, well, I've been a government worker and so I want my student loans forgiven. But that's not going to happen for you because you ignorantly voted, operated, or truly didn't understand the impact of your decisions, not only when you went to school for whatever it is that you wanted to go to school for, but also for the person and the mindset that came with being a liberal or conservative. It all matters. It 100% matters. So now when we get over to the federal government and we say, well, they're laying off 6,000 people here, 4,000 people here, whatever, so on and so forth. This government agency is bloated. Now, we all know that most government agencies, if not all, are pretty much bloated. They're all just places where people hide. They don't really do no work. I know people today that truly don't do no work, and I still don't even know what they do for a living, but I know that they get a paycheck from the federal government, which is basically taxpayer money. And this taxpayer money that they're saving the United States of America, I will also tell you that was not a part of the budget. So when they projected what the federal deficit is going to be, when they started having this conversation about Trump's tax bill, they didn't also include in there the projected savings and or growth from people investing in the United States of America and trimming the workforce. And they're basically their argument on the Democrat side, and also these judges that tried to stop them, their argument was this: people deserve to get an income from the federal government, not that the federal government should be shrinked and right sized so that it can run as efficiently as possible and save taxpayers money. That was the Democrat argument. Not that the government needs to be right sized, not that we had too big a government, not that what we need to see, but no, that the people have a right to unionize and hold on to their jobs for the sake of holding on to it, not because even in regular business, let's be clear, just because you're a part of the union don't mean that you're protected. It means that they set a standard for who and what can get laid off. So for example, the UAW is one of the strongest unions in the United States of America. But the UAW is not protected against, its members are not protected against laid off. Now, the members are protected as far as their seniority of who gets laid off. But if a plant closes in Belvedere, or if it closes over in Michigan or Indiana or over in California, then they then give people that's over in Detroit the option to be able to work somewhere else and go over to here and go and work at this new plant or whatever. And if not, then you need to go and get another job or whatever. But it doesn't necessarily prevent you or prevent the workforce from being right sized, but it just gives them additional protections to say, well, if you're a union member, then if you slap a chick in the bathroom, then it's a possibility you can keep your job. Or if you're a union member, the first people that's going to be laid off is the last people that came in. You see what I'm saying? So it's not the union, as far as federal workers, are not supposed to be meant for their protection against getting laid off altogether. The union was supposed to be so that they can have fair work practices while they're there. Let me continue because I'm cooking a little bit too much today. So let's continue. This might be a little bit too much knowledge.
meaning that the restructuring can move forward while this case plays out.
So, what does that mean exactly about what kind of federal workers will be affected by this? And do we have a sense of how soon that would happen?
So we're talking about federal workers from 12 different agencies. So we're talking about potentially, my understanding is not just tens of thousands of workers, but actually up to 100,000 different workers. This would be a significant restructuring of the executive branch. And again, the underlying question is whether or not the president has the power to do that without working with Congress. The president tried to do this during the first administration by working with Congress. Congress wasn't willing to do that. And therefore, now the president is trying to do this by himself.
And this is the danger of not having a business person inside of our legislative branches. Somebody asked me, and they said, Anton, who are you voting for Detroit mayor? And this was just like yesterday. And I said, well, I don't want to say. I did tell them who it was, but I don't want to say it live. I said, but the person that I want is not the people that could be the most popular. We got a goddamn pastor running for mayor of Detroit. And I know that everybody loves pastors. And so they're going to have a tie to the community because they have large churches and stuff like that. And it's like, man, I don't want no pastor running the city. We need business leaders to make sure that we're continuing the growth and the progress that's been happening in Detroit. You know what I'm saying? And so I told them, I said, whoever it is that I roll with is probably going to be the person that is the most business savvy. I don't care about popularity contests. I don't care about whether or not you're a woman or if you're black or if you're white. The only thing I care about is if you are the person that is the best for the job. Lions Super Bowl, why do you like that person? Tell me why you like that person. Because they're trying to say, well, Congress needs to be in on whether or not these people, Congress don't know they right from they left. You got former servers and people that ain't never ran a business before in their life, and they've been on government assistance and aid for their whole lives, and they get in a popularity contest, and then you know what I'm saying? No. Why? If you're a business leader, that you want that person? What is she? And I'm not saying you're right or you're wrong, but what I'm trying to understand is what makes this person a smart business leader? What has this person that you're proposing done from a business perspective that would lead you to believe that they are smart from, and business wise, and they actually can have conversations with Dan Gilbert and Robert Pinsky and William Ford Clay, and all of this stuff. What is it that this person has done that would lead you to believe that they can sit in a room and negotiate a great deal and make sure that the city's best interest and that they continue to invest in the city the way that they do? And y'all can't answer the question. You can't answer the question because it's all a popularity contest. It's all a popularity contest. Very few people can actually answer the question. Every person that needs to be running for office in the federal government needs to have a business mindset. If they don't understand it, if they can't work with business leaders, if they don't have a track record of some level of success outside of just being in the federal government, then you can't just say go blindly that this person should be here. Because that's how we had got the city into that place in the first place. That's how the city went bankrupt in the first place. That's why you got Chicago's Brandon Johnson and Lori Lightfoot and Tiffany Henyard. That's the reason why those people was in office in the first place. We don't need that nonsense at all. We don't need that. Meanwhile, this woman right here, for example, is saying this about the layoffs from federal jobs.
Look, I don't know if you all paying attention, TikTok family, but if you're watching the news and you care about what's going to happen to you, and we know TikTok has all these great things and tools, ebooks, and all of this shit and whatnot, quick, easy schemes that they say is so easily to get all this extra money. But if you look and you pay attention, April mass layoffs, I was a part of that. Microsoft laid off 9,000 jobs. This is tech as well, HR and other different positions. Now they're finally officially attacking federal workers. What the hell you think is going to happen? So everybody's supposed to stay in the dark? No assistance. People who've worked, paid taxes, did what they were supposed to do. And so now with this narcissistic regime that we have in office and his little booty lickers of America at his wheel, we're screwed. Now I know we did the boots on the ground. We, black folks, we know how to make it. But this is a different time. This is a different situation. And I'm not saying that we need to scramble and,
I'm in LA, big dog. I'm in California.
oh my God, and panic. No, what I'm saying, we have to be strategic in what we do. We're gonna have to learn to get together and plot and save and put whatever we can, because I'm telling you, it's gonna become a time when you better have your paperwork in order. You better have passports. I'm trying to get my stuff together because we don't know. Well, we know God reigns. We know our daddy above. We know what to do, but still, you still got to do the work. And so as I'm reading the news and I'm thinking, like, we got all this bickering.
Listen, I was sold that narrative in church a long time ago. It doesn't work. That's not how life works. You can't pray your way into a job. I know that that's what the preacher is going to tell you. I know that's what women is going to say. I know a lot of people going to have a lot of conversations about how it is that you can do it. I know that they're going to call it. Y'all can't wait to call somebody a bootlicker or somebody racist, but then they over here saying that they're Christians. People always holding me to a high standard. I'm not your preacher. Don't hold me to no standard. My opinion is my opinion, and I'm trying to make it to heaven just like everybody else. But I live and I work and I play and I ultimately operate based off of whatever it is that I believe makes the most sense for me and my family and what I think is right. So don't hold me to a standard. I'm not your preacher. But these people all the time always want to use God and religion in order to justify whether or not they're gonna make it through. You not. You're gonna be poor, you're gonna be broke, you're gonna be on the street, and that ain't gonna have nothing to do with whether or not you pick the right career. Um, it ain't got nothing to do with it. God ain't got nothing to do with you getting laid off. You didn't fill the void that was needed. You didn't do your job correctly. It's not God's fault. God ain't got nothing to do with that at all, whatsoever.
And shit on TikTok and all this other stuff on social media across the, board of the platforms. And I get it. We want to laugh, have fun, but bitches, you paying attention.
See, she cursed. She just cursed. She said the S word. She said the B word. Y'all, they do it. They don't hold them accountable. It's just Anton. Anton, you bad. You said don't wait on a chick that's not a virgin uh to get married to her because she slept with 800 guys before she got to you. Don't worry about it. We gonna get there. We'll get there.
Are you really paying attention to what's really out here? Are you really following? Now, if you got a corporate position, you making great money. I used to be at that point, but shit, I'm here now. And so if you don't plan and having some type of journal income other than what your salary is bringing in, it's hard. It's gonna get hard out here. So I just want to bring awareness. I know I've talked about a lot of things just for me on my page and my niche and all that, or niche. But the reality is kicking in. Like, this shit is different. It's a different time of system that we're in. So we need to start paying attention and focus on unity and checking up on each other, because everybody ain't okay.
No, I'm good. I'm not checking on nobody. I'm only checking up on the bag chasers. I'm checking up on the people that I stream with, and I'm checking up on people that I have a vested interest in being successful with. But more government layoffs is coming. So if you are, and I always warn y'all before it happens, and then it happens, and then you try to act like I never told you, but I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna say that I warned you. More government layoffs from different entities from different sectors. They will continue over the next 2 years. Over the next 2 years, you will see more government layoffs. It's going to slow down later on in 2026 after it ramps up. But there will be more government layoffs, and more people are going to be mad that they got a diversity, equity, and inclusion